Well, hi there, boys and girls, and everybody in between. Have to do it from the iPad today. My phone took a crap. I mean, it's been a long time coming, this thing. I wanted to talk to you, Mr. Vice President, Mr. Joe Biden. As a father of two beautiful young girls, one slightly older than the other, I wanted to talk to you as you stand on the precipice of realizing a lifelong ambition to become the President of the United States. Now, as you do that, I'm sure you have heard the saying, be careful what you wish for, because you might get it. And in this case, I'm saying that because this presidency, whether you like it or not, whether I like it or not, will be the most consequential presidency in human history. And if you get it wrong, now why is it, do I feel it's necessary to maybe send you this message and to make you understand, to try from here to understand how important this presidency is? Well, it's because you're part of a generation that received so much by your parents and how the world was set up for you, but it wasn't enough. You took more. And as your generation is slowly dying, there is no other way of saying it, it's slowly dying and leaving this planet, you're not leaving it better than you found it. Your generation is literally leaving the planet and this country way, way worse off than it was when you found it, when you were born, when you were a teenager, when you were a young adult. But it's not just that it's your generation, Mr. Vice President, Mr. Biden. It is that you, sir, is one of the prime architects of the world as it is today. And that's what worries me. And that's why I'm doing this. When you entered into politics, into the world, there had been a Great Depression. And the smart people of the time had put in a regulatory system to prevent bank boom and bust cycles. You, Joe Biden, have spent your entire political life dismantling that system or helping to dismantle that system, culminating with the repeal of the Glass-Steagall. And ever since then, every president, we the people, have gone through, almost like clockwork, a bank crisis, a Wall Street crisis, a financial crisis, not spurred on by us, the powerless, but spurred on by the people that pay you. You have been a part of creating a monopolized society. In tech, in the medical fields, in farming, wherever you look, retail, wherever you look, we have a monopolized country, and you, sir, your fingerprints are everywhere on the road that got us here. The same when we look at war. From the war in Afghanistan, that was a strategic blunder from the beginning, sending in ground troops to fight a ground war in Afghanistan, the graveyard of empires, to lying us in to wars, to a war in Iraq, and to start wars in Syria, Libya, and Yemen that we're in. That's you. You were a senator or you were a vice president. But you weren't just a backbench senator. You didn't just sit on the sidelines, did you now? You were up front. You pushed this. When your generation started young adulthood, you enjoyed an educational system unmatched in the world. From grade school to universities. That's what your generation enjoyed. And you enjoyed it at a cost that made it accessible for nearly everyone. Today, our students are buried in debt, and the educational system stopped educating a long, long time ago. The generation before you left behind an infrastructure, roads, bridges, research environment that created more patent applications than ever seen by any country before. Our country received more Nobel laureates in science and literature than any other country. Not anymore. What you are leaving, what your generation is leaving behind, is a hollow out, crumbling, second world, fastly deteriorating into a third world infrastructure. Your generation didn't maintain it, spend the money that it cost to upgrade it so that we are now in a 21st century infrastructure getting ready for the future. Your generation just sucked up all that money that your parents and grandparents have saved up for this nation, has built up for this nation, and you just took it for yourself. And you're leaving nothing behind. You're leaving a media landscape behind, again, that's monopolized and centralized, where the voices of the marginalized can't get through on the mainstream media. Excuse me. That's what you're leaving behind. In your generation's mantra became greed is good from the movie Wall Street. And with that mantra in mind, what you did and what your generation set out to do was to dismantle the safeguards, as I said, the economic and financial safeguards, and destroying the ladder, the economic ladder that was built, also called income mobility, also called the American dream. Something your generation enjoyed more than anyone before you, leaving nothing, next to nothing for the next generation, and certainly nothing for the two generations that came after. So you're becoming president of a country that is living off glory days. That when we talk about it, we're really talking about a time way gone. Doesn't exist anymore. When you are sworn in January, you're going to become a president of a country in the middle of a pandemic. A pandemic that you did not start. But I can tell you, by being out here outside your bubble, in a week after the election, 2 weeks, maybe a month, you can't say Trump did, because nobody is going to give a shit. You're not going to get to wipe it off on Trump for very, very long. Nobody is going to care. You're also taking over a country in the worst economic crisis. And in January, it might, since the Great Recession, and in January when you are sworn in, might be worse than the Great Depression, with all that entails. Be it suicide, drug use, abuse, homelessness. That's what you're taking over. That's what you're walking into in January. An entire population on the brink. You're becoming president of a nation where we, the citizens, have never been more divided and more suspicious of each other and the institutions that are supposed to help us. Probably since the revolution. You're also going to become president of the biggest polluter the world has ever seen, and a dying biosphere. Be careful what you wish for, Joe. That's what you're walking into. That is the presidency that you're getting, inheriting. And that's, it's not an impossible thing to get out of, but what worries me are all the things that you have been saying, the platitudes, the lack of actually having a real plan. That's worrisome. I'm afraid what worries me is that you have a false understanding of how and why you got elected. And if what is expressed outwardly in press and media by yourself and your supporters is internalized, if that delusion of how you became president is internalized, you can't afford that because it will doom your presidency before it even got started. So when you walk in to the Oval Office and you sit behind the desk and you hopefully take the 10 and 15 minutes for yourself to surround yourself with the thoughts of Bo and your parents and your grandparents, when you feel that little sting of these important people in your life not being there in person but in spirit to celebrate this great achievement that you have achieved, becoming President of the United States of America. You need to remember how you actually got there. You need to understand and accept that you would not have been there today had it not been for Obama putting his foot on the scale in the Democratic primary. Bernie Sanders would have. You also need to internalize and accept that it is highly unlikely you would have beaten Trump if it had not been for his handling of the pandemic. And it is almost entirely, you wouldn't have won, I doubt it, without the pandemic at all. Wouldn't even be close. And the only way you could have won would have been an economic crash at the end of an election cycle. In that 15 minutes when you sit there and realize that you actually got the job, and it probably could most likely be in a landslide victory, it is important for you to know and to own that you won an anti-Trump election. It wasn't your agenda. Bernie Sanders' agenda is more popular with the people than yours are. Now, why do I think that this is important, Mr. Vice President, for you to remember? It is because your presidency will be so consequential for my kids and for myself. Because if we get the Joe Biden that was Senator Biden, if we get the same person following the same philosophy, living in the middle of the road, you will send the American people running into the arms of something much worse than Donald Trump. As a matter of fact, if your low bar for how transformative your presidency has to be is not FDR, you won't see a second term. And a General Flynn-like kind of person will be our next president. You start out your presidency, being a one-term president. So I hope you leave it all out on the field. If you don't get the first 100 days right, if you don't get the first 2 years right, it is over. As a matter of fact, the first 100 days have never, first year, has never in any presidency in my lifetime been more important. You have to remember that the coalition that brought you its goals will be achieved. Its primary goal will be achieved the moment you unseat Trump. Then there's nothing that holds it together anymore. So if we get Joe Biden, the senator, as Joe Biden, the president, the one that thinks that you can work with Republicans, the one that's seeking the middle ground, the one that keeps catering and protecting Wall Street, the one that keeps trying to compromise with a party that doesn't understand the carrot but only the stick. If you are seeking policies, half-measure policies, in order to get the Republicans on board, this would be the shortest president in American history. You will be a lame duck nearly before the midterms. You've made one of the biggest things is going to be credibility. You have half the population already suspicious of you, and you already gave them something, right? When you stood there and said, I am not going to close down the country, you gave them the George H.W. Bush, read my lips, no new taxes. There are countries in the EU already, Belgium, Germany, France, Great Britain, that are closing down for the winter. The fuck do you think we're going to look like in January, and you're not going to close down? And if you think that, oh yeah, but I didn't close down a couple of states, you think that it won't be spun against you, you must have forgotten what country you're doing politicking in. I don't understand how your advisors told you to say that. You sounded like a focus group follower, not a leader. You can't say I'm going to follow the science and then not follow the science. You've literally put you in a box, so when you do close down either the entire country or large parts of the country, they're going to point to you and they're going to say, we told you so. The other thing that you need to abandon immediately is your knee-jerk reaction to looting and protesters. The police is not on your side. Most of the police unions have endorsed your opponent, and they're looking to undermine your presidency. They will have agitators, as we've already seen with the guy that smashed all the windows at a car spare part store. I don't remember which one it was. We've already seen it. And the fact that you don't recognize that the protests can be fully peaceful and then agitators start something, you are not recognizing the danger that's coming at you from the police. And if you don't do that, your presidency will be over by the midterms. I don't know how you handle that one. I have no advice. But know that the cops are not on your side. But here's the thing. If you truly grasp this moment in history, where we stand, as humans, as a nation, and how Earth's biosphere truly is, you will be able to have a presidency that will put you in front of the history books forever. And you will set humanity on a trajectory that is based on the human story in the universe just being at the beginning and not the end. Everybody talks about the first 100 days. And I have some suggestions for what I think you should do on your first 100 days. The very first thing that you must do in your first 100 days is to assume that you will lose the election in the midterms. Or you will lose the midterms and you will lose the election. And the Democrat, whoever, if you step down and you have Kamala or whoever runs, will also lose. That is the first thing that you must assume. And by assuming that, you have to protect us the people, the marginalized, the black, the brown, the Jews, the Muslims, the marginalized. You have to protect us. What the Trump presidency has shown is that norms alone can't save the republic. That the amount of power given to one person after 9/11 is unhealthy and dangerous to the republic. So the first thing that you must do is that you must roll back all the civil liberties that we gave up voluntarily after 9/11. You must end the spying on us. You must end the extrajudicial killings of U.S. citizens. You must end unlimited detention. You must set in protections that ensure that the next president with the ambitions that Trump has or had has an easy a time as he did. You must protect us from a tyrannical, fascist government that will come if you fail. Secondly, you must implement Biden Care for All the first year. It is overwhelmingly popular within your own party, but it also has a majority support amongst independent and Republicans. You must do it because it's the right thing to do for the people in the country, but also it's the right thing to do for a country that must generate more export of domestic products. And removing the cost of healthcare from the corporations and putting it on the shoulders of everyone is the most pro-business, pro-export business that you can do. You must immediately freeze evictions, foreclosures, and if at all possible, find a way for the people that have just been thrown out of their apartments or just been kicked out of their houses to be put back in those apartment and houses if they have not already been sold or rented out. And in the first 100 days, you must put in the hand of every adult in America $2,000 and $1,000 per child until the pandemic is done. The healthcare and the money will give people the room to breathe. It will turn down the temperature amongst the people, and it will give us all the opportunity to think, to walk away from fear, and be able to see a bigger picture. And lastly, but not least, you have to put an infrastructure rebuilding plan together and execute it so that the people can see things happening immediately. Now, Mr. Vice President, you got what you wished for. The only question left is, did we get what we need? Will you forget the Biden of old and step up to this historical moment and be the president that we need, not only in America, but for the world? May your God bless you, and may we all be safe. Take care of each other. Take care of yourself.